Hello, everybody. I'm on retreat in glorious Colorado. I don't know if you can see out there, but it's snowing and it's beautiful and peaceful and calm. I go away in order to think about things that I couldn't think about on a daily basis. Highly recommend the practice of retreating to everyone. Rosie's here and enjoying our retreat. I have been thinking a lot about program management because as we scale, the ad hoc process that we've been doing is not going to work to bring on new people and new locations. As we get better funding and better visibility, we're adding programs and we're needing to report in more granularity about engagement. And as we have more people engaging with our clients, we need a vehicle for providing more focus. We're not exactly a case management organization. We build relationships with people. We engage with them. We guide them to other programs. We have a few programs of our own, but we track a relationship across a long period of time. It's 3 years to accomplish most of what our clients want in the way of raising themselves out of street dependency. But we often have relationships that last 8 years or so. That's our average at the moment. And so we engage and then re-engage, and we do all sorts of things. And in order to come up with, I'm trying to come up with some sort of schema that we can bank on for the next 10 years as we expand and bring people on. I would like it to be commonplace. I'd like it to be based on best practices. So I've been thinking a lot about that. Let me show you where I am at the moment. I have a little document that I've put together to share with people, and also get a video blog. Anyway, I'm gonna reduce myself to a small thing here, and I have been writing about what are my goals and what are the user stories, goals, assumptions, uh, user stories, management, user stories, um, success factors will be in here. And by that, I mean all of this new stuff needs to benefit our clients. It needs to benefit our staff. But anyway, down here at the bottom is what I wanted to share mostly with. I've been looking at the fairly complex schema that it takes and gathering this from a lot of places. So here we go. I just want to go over this a little bit to share my thoughts. You can see I still have typos in it and everything else. The specific fields here aren't important. They're going to change, but the broad schema is, and yeah, I could draw this on a picture, but I don't want to. So we're going to use the contact. We've always been using the contact, and contacts will have enrollment, service plans, service plan goals, and the names will change. Enrollment is probably really better called engagement because we engage and re-engage. We probably want to have a program object because we're always adding programs, and programs are going to be in different locations and everything, and that will just simply help our staff and our volunteers be able to access those and understand what the qualifications are and the benefits are and the expected duration and so on, and also allow us to report on how many people are involved in each program and so on. But then we have an engagement object, and this will be I was going to call it enrollment, but it's more than that. It's just going to track the continuous involvement we have with a client in around a program. Have a start date. It'll have an end date, and it may have assessments, and it may have service plans attached to it. We're going to have service plans. So this is service plans, a focused set of events, actions, milestones, goals in order to change something about an assessment, really, if you want to call it that. And obviously it'll be related to the contact, but also possibly the program, also possibly the engagement or enrollment. And then it may very well have a tie to a particular assessment idea if it's focused on changing the value of some particular assessment. And then it would have a number of service plan goals that could be in different states. Service plan goals would be templated, so possibly based on a program or a particular assessment item you're trying to move the needle on. You would have a set of these things that are automatically pre-populated, but you can add them, move them, delete them. And these assessments or these particular service plan items would, in my opinion, they need to capture things like this is a goal or this is already accomplished. Need to capture things like this has been discussed with the client on a certain date. It needs to have a description, and you need to be able to add notes to it. So these all belong. There might be, let's say, getting a job is what what the plan is, or increasing pay with a stable job is the service plan. Getting an ID might be a step, and it might be a goal agreed at this point. And there might be a whole lot of other goals in that, but maybe that's all you've talked about with the client so far. And then they accomplish that, and then you start talking about, well, now we need to choose some more companies to apply for, and that might be something you've exposed now to the client, and it's a real goal, and then maybe they achieve it, and then being hired is something, and then maintaining that job for 3 months is something, and then changing jobs to a higher paying job is something, and then finally achieving and maintaining a stable job for 9 months might be the end of that service plan and would result in moving the needle on the particular assessment of having a stable living wage job. So that's what we're thinking, and some parts of that would be templated, and probably some parts of that would be specific. Then there are assessments, and assessments might come in several types, and definitely with different details. I'm imagining that there's probably a standard assessment that comes with a particular program, and that might be templated. It maybe the assessment comes for the entire organization, and maybe it's based on some agreed upon domain assessments. I work with homeless young adults. There are assessments agreed upon for homeless young adults. There are other people who work in employment, and there are agreed upon the Phoenix domains for stability and poverty are kind of agreed upon, and maybe you assess all of them. But anyway, you do assessments. I also envision that we do follow-on client self-assessments. They're probably more simple. We do assessment at intake, perhaps. We do assessment at disengagement, perhaps. We do assessment at re-engagement, perhaps. Perhaps we do assessment when clients just contact us again for a little more guidance counseling. And so I'm envisioning that there might be multiple assessments. I'm also envisioning, particularly on the basis of my conversations with other people, and I want to call out someone in particular. Heath Parks is Salesforce administrator at Cincinnati Works, and they have a number of programs, and they have been doing assessments and service plans for quite a while, and they have really good history with that inside of Salesforce. And I'm really relying on a lot of validation from Heath. And they, in particular, do an assessment for like an engagement, and they change the assessment as things improve. So long as it's kind of the same engagement, they change that. They have history tracking turned on, so they are able to report on what changed in terms of the aggregate score, and they do snapshottings, so they're able to grab snapshots of all the assessments. But they don't like keep the assessment at intake and the assessment at midterm and the assessment at graduation for the same engagement. Is going to be one object that just gets changed. And I think there's room for that. I think that simplifies a lot of staff data input and database size and so on. And yet if they engage in a different program, there might be a different assessment needed, and that would perhaps be a different record. And you can add new domains and do that assessment on an existing record or only on future records. So I think organizations are going to need a lot of flexibility, even within one org and certainly across orgs, for how many assessments are done and how standalone each assessment is. So an assessment may not be a particular point in time; it may be across a period of time. And then the assessment item, I was calling it, but I think domain may be a much more specific one. We in our organization, we have something like 44 domain or subdomains that we've identified, but we do separate like getting an ID from getting a job. We do separate doing a coordinated assessment with an organization that provides housing from getting housing. So we have subdomains and domains, about 44 of them, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. But probably you need to assess them in some uniform manner so that you can get an average of all of those. And then in terms of UI, take advantages of Salesforce. Path would be used on as many of these as make any sense at all. Approval process would be used on as many of them as makes any sense. I think it's reasonable to have an approval process for new engagements. It may be reasonable to have an approval process for closing an engagement. I think templating needs to be used, which really isn't necessarily about the UI, but children objects need to be attached. So assessment objects, domains need to be attached to assessments, but the UI needs to do something about that. And I was really delighted to see, in particular, with Cincinnati Works, that they were able to do a Visualforce page to easily present on a Visualforce page all of the subdomains associated with an assessment in a very easy to use graphical interface for the user. So I think we're definitely going to want to do that. And then Kanban views should be used as often as possible. In particular, for example, they could be used to rate an assessment if you didn't want to do Visualforce. 1 through 5, Kanban view would probably do just great for domain ratings. And then Kanban view would also be really good for service plan step changes, marking them as different status. So, and then you can use lots of automation steps. But anyway, I'm going to stop now. I just wanted to share this. I really want to see the Salesforce community come up with a standard starting point for schema for program management. And I think, the sprint is always mentioned as a place to do this, and sprints are very important. But I think it's going to take interim work in between sprints to come up with this. So I'm just sharing this. We are going to implement what you see here. I'm dying to get immediate feedback that would change my immediate implementation. We're going to implement in a simple way, a declarative way, and try to get started. Truth be told, we already have a staff that's capturing the bottom of this already. We capture goals and achievements on a daily basis. We capture engagement on a daily basis. So what I'm really going to do at Street Youth Ministry is I'm going to come in with a middle layer that will give an attachment point for all of those things that we're already collecting. Right now they attach directly to the client and we just analyze them in mass. But we're going to insert this middle layer of an engagement and a service plan to which assessment items and goal achievement or goal setting items can live, and that will provide more structure and more focus. So we're a little bit retrofitting, but I think we want to do as much standard work as possible and see if we can't broaden this to be applicable to lots of organizations so that we can get a lot of uplift from the philanthropy cloud. All right, thanks very much. I appreciate you. Please share your best practices. Please comment on this. Please let me know. We are going to be implementing immediately, so if you can save me a lot of pain by telling me something not to do or something to do, please share. Thanks much. Bye.